Aston Martin's 2024 season has been a nightmare, and the people behind it are starting to face the consequences, but it isn't who you might be expecting. It feels like a lifetime ago that Aston Martin were challenging for race wins, but at the start of 2023, there was a huge amount of hype around the team. A lot of that was thanks to their superstar engineering signing Dan Fallows, and while the initial results suggested he was the man who could make Lawrence Stroll's dream happen, that hype train has well and truly derailed. Today, I'll check out what's gone wrong with Aston Martin and why heads are now rolling. Aston Martin's 2024 season has been an unmitigated failure. A best finish of 5th came in the second race of the season, not exactly the heady heights of the second step of the podium, which they made their home at the start of the 2023 season. Since that 5th place, they've slumped to some shockingly bad lows. Like a contestant on Takeshi's Castle, they've slipped up, tripped over, and have been completely out of control as their upgrades have failed and their performance has disappeared. The result is the least impressive 5th place in the Constructors' Championship in recent memory. They have 5 more points finishes than Haas and VCARB do, and while they may have double the points of either of those teams, that is simply due to Fernando Alonso's brilliance. Lawrence Stroll has been even more of a disaster than he normally is, and if Sergio Perez wasn't performing so badly, he'd be a shoo-in for unmitigated failure of the season if such an award existed. Without a points finish in 8 races, and with only 6 in the 13 before them, Stroll Jr.'s season managed to find a new low in Sao Paulo. Locking up in turn 4 on the formation lap was an uncomfortable mistake to make, but the conditions were awful and the track was resurfaced, so that could have been forgiven. To follow up that mistake by trying to play dumper trucks in the gravel trap with his F1 car was unforgivable though. His engineers had worked miracles to repair his car after the qualifying crash, and he rewarded them with a retirement that would have embarrassed Nikita Mazepin. Despite Lance's failures though, as the team owner's son, his position is sadly safe. That same protection is not afforded to the rest of the team though. For 2 straight seasons, Aston Martin has failed to fit an effective upgrade to their car. Haas and VCARB are now both a match for them in terms of performance. 2 teams with minuscule budgets who have to live with the hand-me-downs of Red Bull and Ferrari, are matching a team with the best factory and testing facilities in the sport. Lawrence Stroll has invested hundreds of millions into equipment and staff to help Aston Martin succeed, and they've failed. Heads were always going to roll, and the first to go is that superstar engineering signing, Dan Fallows. Following their performance at the start of 2023, he was hailed as the second coming of Adrian Newey, but he hasn't lived up to that very first car. The technical details of his dismissal is that he has left his role within the Formula 1 team, but will remain within the group. Presumably, what that means is a move to the WEC team, working on the GT4, GT3 and Valkyrie hypercar that will enter the top tier of endurance racing in 2025. Then, once his contract is finished, well, he'll probably be gone. Fallows' departure is thought to be driven by new Chief Executive Officer Andy Cowell. The former head of Mercedes' F1 engine program started at Aston Martin in October. With Adrian Newey joining the team next season as well, he may be starting to have some inputs on who he wants in the team when he gets there. A lot of the hype around Fallows was generated because he had trained under Newey at Red Bull. But considering how badly the car development at Aston Martin has gone under his leadership, that apprenticeship doesn't look to have done him much good. Fallows, who joined Red Bull on a salary in the region of £1 million a year, said in a statement, "It has been a joy and a privilege to guide the technical team on their journey towards being race and championship winners. It is time for me to pass on the baton, but I look forward to watching the team's future success, which I'm sure will come soon." Before I talk about his replacement and just how badly things have gone for Fallows, if you enjoy the content we make here at F1 Reverse, then why not give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. We recently passed 70,000 subscribers and would love to see how far we can grow that number before Christmas. Thanks a lot. So with Fallows vacating the position of technical director, the team's executive director Bob Bell, a highly regarded and experienced design engineer who joined the team in March, will fill in on a temporary basis. Bell was technical director when Renault won their last world titles with Fernando Alonso driving in 2005 and 2006. He had been in an advisory role at Alpine since 2018, but joined the departures list from the team at the start of 2024. There will be a long-term replacement for Fallows lined up, but Bob Bell will be holding down the role, probably until the end of the season. The bigger picture of Fallows' firing is interesting and shocking. Aston Martin have faded into midfield obscurity over the past 2 seasons. 17 points in the last 8 races is equal to Haas's haul in the same time period. It's far less than Alpine's, but the Brazil result is an outlier in terms of performance. Haas should not be battling Aston Martin for points finishes. They shouldn't be able to go toe-to-toe like they are. Aston Martin is a massive Formula 1 team with the best facilities the sport has to offer. Haas are the exact opposite. Yet Haas is showing that good engineering and the right people can compete. Aston Martin is showing that all the money in the world can't buy you success. You still need the right people making the right decisions. For the buck to stop with Dan Fallows, though, is a shock. Until the Newey announcement, Fallows was seen as the statement signing, which showed that Aston Martin were on their way to competing for F1 championships. The Silverstone-based team had to fight tooth and nail to get him into their factory, as Red Bull took them to court to stop the move happening. When Aston Martin announced Fallows' appointment in the summer of 2021, Red Bull countered by saying they planned to enforce the rest of Fallows' contract, meaning he wouldn't be able to start work at his new team until mid-2023. Both teams spent hundreds of thousands in legal fees battling over who Dan would work for over the next 2 years, highlighting just how highly regarded he was at the time. It wasn't until the start of 2022 that the 2 teams managed to reach an agreement, which allowed Fallows to leave Red Bull midway through the 2022 season. That agreement was only reached after a number of court dates, which resulted in a court decision that Red Bull were not required to let Fallows leave his contract early. The details of the agreement were never made public, but considering the court decision sided with Red Bull, Aston Martin would have had to pay a significant amount of money to Red Bull to get Fallows into their team a year early. With his £1 million a year contract as well, Fallows was expected to deliver. Is he to blame for Aston Martin's failure since his signing? Well, he can't be solely to blame. That team is made up of 1,000 people, all of which have an impact on performance. But as an incredibly well-paid member of upper management, whose entire role is to drive car performance, he has to be the one who takes responsibility. Aston Martin's factory team have not been performing, and something had to change. Lawrence Stroll is not a man who suffers fools, unless they're his son, of course. He wants to build a championship-winning team. Fallows was given time to get the team working. He was there for just over 2 years, and while the initial results with the 2023 car were incredibly promising, nothing has happened since then. They tried to make it work, it didn't, so they're making changes. Let's see if those changes work. What's your opinion on Aston Martin's performance this season? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you want to support the channel, the best thing you can do is head to our merch store, f1reverse.com, and get yourself some sweet F1 inspired gear. Thanks a lot, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.